So in this video, we're going to talk specifically about your service and your processes. Everything that we're looking at will be in Business Central, as well as in two specific solutions we're looking at today, the Dime.Scheduler and the Anvaigo Mobile Service App. So we can see the full process from start to finish. So as we get started here, who is Anvaigo? So we've been on the market for around 15 years with App and EDI. Everything we're doing is 100% integrated in your Business Central, on-prem, on cloud, doesn't matter on our side. And I'm Kay from the Partner Care team, and I'm just going to go over everything with you today. Joining me, I have...
So my name is Hendrik Bulens. I am the managing partner at Dime Software. Our company has a similar history as Anvaigo. We started out in 2010 initially as a NAV consulting firm, but we quickly pivoted towards becoming an ISV company, specializing in creating add-ons for ERP systems with a specific focus on Business Central, of course.
Yeah, so today we're going to go over, Hendrik and I, we're going to go over specifically service. So what we're really looking at is sort of the full service process. So starting from the beginning, obviously, we have our Business Central. We're going to create our service order and then kick everything over to the Dime.Scheduler, where we can pick our technician, plan, make sure we have all the correct people for what we're needing. That'll go back into our Business Central. Our resource planning is completed. And from there, it will move into the Anvaigo mobile app, where our technicians can handle everything on site. And then finally, once more, move into our Business Central, where we can see all of those updates to our service order. Really important here, we are talking about a full service. So we want to make sure that you have everything for your technicians on site. Everything is always handled in your Business Central, so you don't have any data in a couple of systems that you're working with, but all the information is going in and out of there, and it's definitely up to date. And you don't have to handle a couple of systems or worry that you have the wrong information, but you have everything on hand for your technicians, for your back office and that resource planning. And I'm a huge fan of letting the products speak for themselves. So why don't we dive right in and get started in that Business Central? Hendrik, want to take over from here?
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Let me set the scene for just a second. I have currently open an Edge browser with two tabs here. On the first tab, we see our good old trusty planning tool, Dime.Scheduler. And in the second tab, we have a new Business Central Cloud in this instance, but we have compatibility with BC on-prem and even older versions of NAV. And I think it goes the same story with the Anvaigo mobile app as well. There's a lot on screen, lots of colors, lots of information out there. It's chock-a-block with data. But let me set the scene here by starting out with a component that we call the Open Tasks List. This is just a basic data grid that shows all the work that still needs to be scheduled in the organization. In our nomenclature, a task is just a unit of work. It's up to you to decide what a task is, what level you want to plan. What that means is completely up to you. Because we have native integration with Business Central, we could be pulling data from tables like sales orders, production orders, the costs of absences table, projects. But of course, the focus of today will be service orders. That's a task. The second very simple concept is here visible in our planning board here. At the left-hand side of the splitter here, we see a list of resources. And much like a task, a resource can be anything or anyone that you would like to plan. We could be talking about service technicians, managers, QA staff. You could be planning your fleet of vehicles, meeting rooms. Again, it doesn't matter. It's up to you to define what a resource is. Could be a different level, could be a department, could be a team. It's up to you to decide what a resource is. So the basic process will be drag and drop from this open task list to a slot on the planning board, potentially supported by components like the map, like the resource filters, and maybe even also our capacity and planning pivot grid to see the capacity of our workforce. But bear in mind, for now, these are supporting components to help the planner make the right call, who's going to do what and when. I'll get back to this in a second, but let me switch over to Business Central, because Business Central is essentially quite essential to the entire operation. Without Business Central, there will be no data to play with in Dime.Scheduler and also not in the Anvaigo mobile app. What I'm going to show here is standard Business Central, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail here. All you need to do is do as you would usually, just maybe even use maintenance contract, service contract, or what I'm going to do in this case is just create a very simple service order with standard capabilities. So all I need to do basically to kick off this process is select the customer. That will populate a whole bunch of address fields, as we can see here. And I'm going to do two more things to showcase a couple of more capabilities. The first one will be the service order type. What we'll do here in our integration by default is connect an item in this list to one of these background colors on the planning board. So just by looking at your schedule, you know what kind of work is on the docket. But as everything else in our tool and also with the Anvaigo mobile app, it's very configurable, so you can choose how these applications should behave, and not the other way around, basically. I'll select the general service order type. We'll see in a second when I drag and drop this order on the planning board, that will be linked to this dark blue background color. The second thing, of course, that I need to fill out is an item. I'll just do that, the one that's available for this customer here. And that's all we really need here from Business Central to start planning this order in. Whenever you're ready, whenever the process is approved, whenever the manager says this one is good to go, all you need to do is go to the Actions menu in the ribbon, navigate to the Dime.Scheduler sub menu, and then send over the order. A very frequently asked question is, can we automate this? Of course you can. As an ISV, we don't want to enforce any business logic onto you. If you can find a way to automate that process, you can do that, absolutely not a problem. But essentially, it will do the same thing. Whenever you kick off that workflow behind the scenes, we're going to gather everything relevant for planning, like address information, like the item, like contact information. We'll just bundle it as one single line and make it available in the open task list for this order 204. So let me close Business Central for a second. I'll get back to it soon enough. But we'll see here in our open task list, order 204 shows up here at the bottom because I've sorted on the order number. Now, once a task shows up in this bucket of unplanned work, it's completely up to the planner to decide what happens next. You could just simply drag and drop it if you know beforehand who's going to do that order. Just take it and drag it somewhere on the planning board of which you think that will make sense, that will be feasible for the technician to go out and do that work on time. I'm not going to do that now, so I'll hit the escape key on my keyboard because oftentimes you want to use more information to look for the right resource. Of course, very relevant for this kind of planning is location, so you could click on the task of interest. If there's location known for that, the marker on the map will be appended to show where you have to go to do that job. You can see here it's somewhere in the south of the London metropolitan area. And then you can just simply look for resources, which in my case here are marked in this purple color, see who's nearby and how long it would take for a certain resource to get to that customer. In this case, for a resource, Richard Clarkson, it would take about 45 minutes to go out there and help out that customer. So simply by looking at his schedule and the travel time, you could say, all right, resource Richard Clarkson, there's not much going on his schedule for the week, so we can assign him based on travel time and his available schedule. But as everything else in this application, there's nothing fixed. There are no fixed workflows, so you could ignore this kind of geographical planning, or you could use it in combination with, for example, our resource filters component, which essentially is a query filter builder, allowing you to look for resources with certain capabilities. We could be using standard tables like skills or service zones, but you could add any dimension imaginable. Think about certifications, languages, departments, product types. You could be bringing everything over from Business Central, of course, and then assign them to your resources and ideally also mark them as requirements to your tasks. So you could create some ad hoc filters, like, for example, somebody in the Midlands with a specific skill. Hit that filter button right here, and you'll see a subset of the resources that comply with this particular query that I made ad hoc. If you don't like what you're seeing, you could adjust your filter, perhaps remove the region skill, so you'll see more resources with the right attribute, but not necessarily operate in the area of interest. So you could create your own queries if you wanted to. But of course, the power of this entire composition with Business Central is that this is master data that can be easily managed in Business Central and also be assigned as requirements to your service orders. So if you know beforehand what is required for somebody to go out and do their job successfully, you can pass along those requirements with your task, in which case you'll see this filter button will be enabled next to your task. The idea is, of course, that you can click on that. This populates the builder and will immediately execute your filter against your list of resources. So with one click of a button, you can see exactly who you can or should consider. So it could be different for each resource and for each task that you want to plan. So for this order 204, we can see Richard Clarkson shows up and he is available and he also appears to be close by. So you could think this resource is the right person for the job. But again, I'm repeating myself until I'm blue in the face. This is not a mandatory workflow. It's up to the planner to make the final call. So if he thinks Richard is the right resource for the job, he can then go ahead and drag and drop it. Or he can just ignore all of it and just make a judgment call to say maybe this Johnny Marr here, we'll put him on the books for coming Thursday. So in the end, long story short, what you want to do is drag a task you want to plan, drop it somewhere on the planning board, and then whenever I release this mouse button right here, we're going to invoke a whole bunch of digital witchcraft to make sure this planning data is processed in Business Central and also then can be synchronized to the Anvaigo mobile app. So the process doesn't stop here. It continues in Business Central, in Outlook, in the Power Platform. It can continue anywhere, but of course the focus is Business Central. So before I go there, let me just highlight this order 204 now has been removed from our list of open tasks. So this really shows the work that still has to be done or done partially. Let me remove this for just a second. I'll hit the delete key on my keyboard and you'll see right away order 204 comes back into our list of open tasks. So all of it is bidirectional real time. So you can keep this application open in the morning and you'll see these tasks go up and down depending on what you do and also what your colleagues will do as they go along and plan their workforce. So let me put this one back on Thursday. You can see if I double click on my appointment card, we can see this dark blue color is linked to the service order type of service. So by looking at my planning, I know this order 204 adds of type or service, general service. Could be something else. For example, yellow can means preventive maintenance contracts. You could be using different color schemes just to show the status and the progress of your work. Now let's go to Business Central, see how this is written back into BC. So I can right click on my appointment, check out the links. Then we have links to, for example, SharePoint documents, to-do lists, to other relevant external links. But the link of interest here is the service order. What we're going to do by default when Dime.Scheduler publishes data into Business Central is that we're going to create, by default again, resource allocation lines, because that happens to be the most relevant table out of the box that we can use to write back planning data. So if we go have a look at the allocation lines here, we'll see this row here. That's the exact same thing as the planning that we did, but in a less graphical way, of course. So you can see we put something on the books for Johnny for the 7th of August with the capacity of 4 allocated hours. Let's say maybe Johnny called and he saw that this planning in his mobile app and he called the dispatcher. No, I can do that. I have a doctor's appointment. Simply reschedule for another day. Perhaps what you could do as well is add additional resources, change the resource altogether. Whatever it may be, you can do that in the planning board within a couple of clicks. So let me maybe put another resource to that job to send them to the customer to make sure they don't have to come back on Monday to get that job done. If you go back into Business Central, hit F5, you'll see the change will have been updated and also our resource has been appended to the list of allocation lines. Now we're going to jump the gun a little bit as to not have too much overlap with the case demo. Once we have planning here, we can link it back into Dime.Scheduler. Let's say the technician pushes a button somewhere in the app to mark, we're going to start working on that. What that can do or will do, depending on what you want to do, is, for example, set this repair status code to something else. And we've used this column here also to link it to one of our visual indicators. So each of these options is linked to one of these underscores here. So if we have a look at our detailed card, you can see the initial status of the repair status code list is linked to this sort of grayish, bluish hue. So what we could do is push an update from the mobile app that will go back into Business Central, standard Business Central, but now we know there's a link with our planning tool that will push it back into Dime.Scheduler, and you'll see without doing anything, our status is now in process, rendered in this orange color. So this kicks off a bidirectional workflow, so you don't have to duplicate data. There's no manual entries whatsoever. So data goes into Business Central, third-party tools, other ISV extensions. That goes back into Dime.Scheduler, creating this end-to-end workflow from and to the dispatch board. But I already jumped the gun a little bit. So the key here with the integration with the Anvaigo mobile app is this standard table. So we work together quite a bit. There's not a week that goes by that I didn't hear of Anvaigo, but we actually don't have a direct dependency on each other's applications. The cornerstone here is the resource allocation lines. Whenever data shows up here, that's when the mobile application kicks into the process. And that's when I invite Kay back to show the Anvaigo mobile app.
Thank you for already sort of jumping ahead and mentioning that codependency and that we are pushing that information back. So we'll also see when we jump into the app on my side that I'm actually using those lines to say, okay, we have started work on site. So dispatchers in the background would be informed of everything that's going on and they don't have to call and check up, but they have that information right away. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. And I actually have my iPad right in front of me. From my side of things on the Anvaigo mobile app, I don't care what type of device you're working with, laptop, tablet, cell phone, what operating system, that'll all be fine in the background. What matters is your technicians have on their mobile device all of the information that they will need to complete their job. So I've already logged in here, and right off the bat in my main screen, I can see quite a lot of information. So I've got my messages up front here. I perhaps got a push notification that says a new order has been assigned to me. That would then be coming as soon as that hits from Dime.Scheduler back into Business Central. I can push that out to the technician and they know, oh, hey, let's run a synchronization, pull the latest data and information, and I've got all of that right up front. I also, a little further down, have history of past information if I need that, time tracking. And then, most important, on my right-hand side, I have that overview of my service, everything that's going on, service items, spare parts. I can create quotes and orders, view my customers. But what I want to do today is I want to jump directly into my service. So I've already hit my little tiny synchronization button at the top. I want to make sure I have the latest up-to-date information. And here I can see that particular service order that's come through from the Dime.Scheduler and Business Central into my mobile app. And if I swipe to the side, I can go right ahead and do a couple of things, such as, from my side of things, start navigation. Please don't ask me to go anywhere without using a GPS. I will get lost. I can see right away. I know how to get there. I can call my colleagues or call my customers as well and say, hey, I'm going to be there in about 45 minutes. We saw that, but our customers are remaining up to date. They know when I'm going to be arriving. You can also see where I'm specifically going. I should be talking to Kevin when I get there. Got that address, but let's jump in and look at my service order itself. So right here, we have that same repair status code. So I'm going to go right ahead and start my work. And as soon as that changes, that would then push back, as we saw from Hendrik, into my Business Central for the team to be able to see that. Further down, I've got quite a lot of lines, all of that information coming from my service order. So I have my service item information, both my service item and item information, that information on what I'm supposed to be working on site, got a serial number, a warranty. Further down, I have sort of all that documentation side, pictures, spare parts, adding resources, and then we'll get a little further down into checklists, what I'm actually doing on site. and then any other documentation for the customer. So I'm going to start right off and view particularly my service item number. I want to know what I should be fixing when I'm on site. I need to know what item this is. I can see, all right, it is installed, but it's got a pretty low priority, no service item information on when that was last handled. And from what we call a little burger menu at the top, here I can actually view some additional information. I, for example, really like my components on the service side of things. I know I already have my spare parts in the vehicle, so I definitely have those before I left for the day. But I would also have pictures, history, service contracts. That's all there, so I know my colleague was there last week, wasn't able to fix everything. Now I'm out to fix everything today. I have that overview of, past service orders, pictures from those service orders. And I'm definitely able to make the right impression because I know what's been going on with this item. Moving on from that, of course, the same with the item description. That service item is that particular service item. And here would be more general information if I need that. But I'm going to jump right into actually what I'm supposed to be doing on site. So I'm going to go right down and start my checklist. And I have several possible checklists that I could be handling here. We did talk about a couple of different types of service. Maybe you've got annual maintenance. Maybe you've got some installations that take a little longer. And here I just have general actual repair maintenance that I'm looking at today. But I would have the ability to go through all of those sort of to-do lists, checklists here. But I'm just going to jump in to my original service. So I can see right off the bat everything that I should be doing on site. I've got some red with some mandatory fields. My work description, okay, mouse damaged. Definitely know how to fix that, but I'm going to walk through everything and just do my edits as we go. So check Windows version. And here on the side, I always have the opportunity to talk about standardization. So I can say there's only so many things that I can do on site when we're talking about service. Did I repair it? Did I replace it? Was I not able to do anything because it's the wrong item and I have to wait for, the spare parts to come in from my colleagues that I give a loaner? I can have that information and then I don't have to worry about what did my service technician actually do on site. All that information is exactly there. Some more detailed information, check a temperature. Oh, I can also add some sort of pop-up warning message at any point in time when we're talking about the mobile app. In this case, I need to be within a set range for my values, a server temperature of 2. That's pretty cold wherever I am. So 22 sounds a little more reasonable on my side, and I can go ahead and note that. Hardware, I did not check that. I have more complicated business logic, both when we're talking about our checklists and in general in the app that I can build in at any point in time. And it's given me, in this case, a separate question. Why did I not do that? Review was not necessary. So everything looks pretty good. I didn't need to do that. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a resolution. For my side of things, here I don't have a standard set response, but instead I'm going to work with our voice recognition today. Mouse has been replaced. Check back in with customer in the fall. As we see, that doesn't always work exactly as we need to. I can always go and make amendments as we go. Maybe I should turn off my voice recognition there. So I do have a couple of possibilities for how to work with that. And I can always go and have my comments exactly as I need them. That looks much better, but that just gets me a couple more possibilities to really quickly note and save my information here. So from here, I've completed my checklist. Just going to go ahead and save all of those details. This will also be pushed back to our dynamics, so I'll have that information. And now I get to the fun part of service, all of that documentation. That's a point that sometimes is a little tedious, but we'll try and make it a little fun today. So I'm going to start off with taking my pictures. Obviously, I need some sort of visual documentation of my installation or before and after of my repairs. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a picture here. And at this point, I am just using a camera on my device to take that picture. And then from here, I can also always edit my picture and say, hey, I don't know what this is. Please order me my spare part to our back office. Or here's the before and after of installation. Any of that visual documentation, I can always edit. I can also just as well add some pictures from the gallery. If I've taken them on a different device, maybe that has a better camera, I can have all of that noted as well. So then I'm going to come in and add my spare parts. So from here, when I hit items, I'm just getting my standard item list. I do have a barcode or QR code scanner I can use instead. And here we're seeing another feature as well, a little tiny green dot flipping back and forth to red, and that will be our live fields. Everything that we've looked at so far is 100% offline capable, so I don't have to worry if I'm working in a basement and I don't have internet, or I'm out in the middle of nowhere working on a wind turbine. I can definitely keep working, except for this little field. Here I would have the latest information from my last synchronization, but otherwise I'd have a red dot saying, hey, I might not be the latest up-to-date information, but I can get that as soon as I have some Wi-Fi. So I'm going to go ahead and add a spare part. We did do a couple of exchanges for them today. I've got that on there, my service item worksheet, all my details. I know what's going on. And then I'll go ahead and I'll add a resource as well. I did have a colleague helping me today. Terry came out and did 2 hours of work. Really great that they're there to help, but I want to make sure those hours are noted as well. So all that information can definitely be noted about those pictures, those spare parts, those resources. And for my side of things, I've done everything I need to on site. I'm going to go right ahead, collect a signature from the customer, push everything back to Dynamics, and head out to my next repair. So if I hit my signature at the bottom, I get an overview of everything that I've been doing on site. My customer details up here, that service item, and all of those specific lines that we added are there. And I can go ahead and hit that signature button. Again, that pop-up warning is saying, please do step A before we get to step B. I definitely want to make sure I'm actually ending my work. Here we're talking about those repair statuses from the service order header, and I want to make sure that that is updated. And now I can go ahead and complete step 2. And from here on out, there we go. I've got that signature showing, but I can also go ahead and create a service order worksheet. I can print to a Bluetooth printer or send via email to my customer all of the information for their records, that service order number, my information, their information, service items, service lines. I've got some tasks on here so I can have that overview of the information that was done on site if I need to, and that signature as well. So I have my up-to-date information. I'm going to go ahead and start my departure. I'm headed off to my next task, and then we can jump back and see what everything looks like in our Dynamics, in our Business Central. All right, so here I have that specific service order in front of me, in my case, the 62 that we were looking at. I can see that that repair status has come back. I have those details there. I have all of my service order lines as well. That spare part of that resource information is showing there. Here is where I can always go ahead and say, Terry is still in training. Want to make sure that we're giving a discount on that. That shouldn't be charged to the customer, or it's definitely in warranty, everything that we're doing for them. And then in addition to that, I have all of my Anvaigo information. So we've taken with our base app the standard service module and extended that with a couple of additional fields. So for example, that checklist that we went through, I can always go and view all of those details. I have all of that information. Who completed that? All of my answers have come back through, so I can have all of that details if I need them. But I also have, for example, those signatures are there if I need to, check what those spare parts are, things like that. That's all available for me, and that signature as well. So from here as well, that status here, that status down here, that would also be pushed back into the time scheduler, and your back office person, that dispatcher would also know, hey, they've definitely completed everything. Maybe an hour earlier than we expected. They're headed on to the next job. I can see where they're headed. All that detail is going in and out of your Business Central to make sure everyone is up to date with the latest information. So again, we've done that whole process. We have everything that we needed to for all of our teams, for our scheduler in the back office and our dispatcher, for anyone who's working with that service order. Maybe it's back office team who gets the call that says things aren't being repaired, also those technicians on site, and in general, also your customer. You've got a much more professional response when you're talking to them because you have all of your information at a glance. You're sending the correct teams on site who have the skills to be able to complete what's needed, and you can provide them the information up front, where they are, what's going on, when they're going to be needed there. So, any next steps from our side? We've gone over the basics of Dime.Scheduler and the Anvaigo mobile app today, but you can reach out to Hendrik and I and schedule a personal demo where we will not only go over the solutions again themselves, but also talk about your specific requirements and how we can fit what you're needing for your teams. Maybe your service looks a little different. You need some additional information. You've got a larger team, smaller team, things like that. Or you just have any general questions. Take the time, reach out, and we are happy to meet with you to go over everything that you need. So, we look forward to hearing from you.